Hi, Melanie. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, Susan. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this Women's Wisdom Shared interview. You and I have had many conversations about business. We've talked about supporting women in business, what type of women we would want to support in business, and how women can rise in business. There's one thing that you and I share, and that is we are both strategists. Strategy is our middle name. And I've come to know that about you and our work together. And I think you've probably seen the same in me, so that when we get together, we're like right in the middle of a conversation.
Right.
So today I wanted to ask you to share your ideas with me about a couple of things that we see in business today. One of them is uncivil discourse. It's a culture, it's a flavor. And the other is trust. Now, you may read these things together or you might take them separately. I wanted to ask you to share some of your thoughts about this, some of the wisdom that you've gleaned and gained over the years as a CEO.
Well, one of the things that I've seen is that when there is a lack of civil discourse in the workplace, whether it is between employees of any level or vendors and companies or customers with employees, it engenders the opposite of efficiency, effectiveness, quality work, all the things we say we want in business.
Mm.
So if we want the best work, if we're going to be focused on the bottom line and profitability, which again, business people say they want, we must be civil. That's just duh,
Yeah.
right? And the misunderstanding that we can just treat people however, or we can say, well, that we don't have civil discourse in the political arena right now, so everything's fair game. It's simply not true. People don't respond well when they're screamed at.
Mm.
Period, full stop. This does not get the best of people.
Mm. Period, full stop. Recently, I made a post on LinkedIn. I was working with a young client and I said, there's no yelling in business. Of course, a takeoff on the movie reference, there's no yelling in baseball from A League of Their Own. And I couldn't be more in sync with this message, period, full stop. The idea that uncivil discourse in business chips away or eats away at the bottom line is very intriguing. The opposite is what?
The opposite is being able to speak reasonably, to express your opinion calmly, in a well thought out fashion, to say, I respectfully disagree, and how can we find common ground? And there are books written about negotiating, and part of that is creating a civil table around which you can speak
Mm.
and finding common ground. This is what we must do in all parts of our lives, to move forward, to make
Yeah.
progress, to improve.
Yeah. I mean, in all parts of our lives to move forward, and especially in business, because what you're saying is your bottom line will improve from this flavor of culture, from this type of atmosphere. I love that you said before that, it's antithetical. The way business is today in some cases is antithetical to exactly what it is that we claim we want from our businesses, which is to profit, to grow. And then of course we're in the purpose business space, and so for us it's the impact outcomes as well.
That's right.
So where does trust then come in, and how does that play a role here?
Right. So trust is very important in the business environment as well. And the problem that we have with trust is once it is lost, which it can be lost very easily, then that person is the person who's lost the trust, whether it's with the organization, their boss, their vendor, their customer, wherever the trust is lost. Now you have a very long road to repair that trust, or the person will leave, or you will lose the customer, or you will lose that vendor, and it will cause chaos and business disruption.
Right.
So the cost of the lack of trust, the loss of trust is extremely high. So I think it's important for us to focus on how can we rebuild trust? Let's just assume we've lost trust. How can we rebuild trust? What do those steps look like? And I think that's a ripe area for research and for looking at ourselves and saying, let me look at my relationships in work and outside of work. How can I rebuild trust in those relationships where there's been some loss of trust? It's really important. Without trust, again, you cannot move forward together. You can move forward separately, but not together.
The point is that you were just saying is that if you move forward separately, you're taking away from the bottom line and from the opportunity of synergistic growth and outcome.
Right.
And so then in addition, if there is that mistrust in any one of those categories, which was interesting that you mentioned, it may be a vendor, it may be a customer, it may be an employee, that broken trust creates real obstacles to overcome. Now
Yes.
you're in what I call resistance.
Right.
And when you're in that resistance place, then de facto, you're not in that nice alignment of,
Right.
your business mission with your spiritual intention, with your, divine outcomes that you want to offer in the purpose business.
That's right. And if I could just one example, let's say we have been less than truthful with our banker and the banker finds out. Look at the effect that's going to have on your business when you need to borrow money, when you need to renegotiate terms. It's a real problem. And banks know when you keep shopping for different banks, they all know. And so then what's wrong with you? This creates a very steep cost for an organization. On the other hand, if you work on your bank relationship and they know that you are honest with them, trustworthy, when you have a problem, you go and you say, here's the problem I'm having, here's what I'm doing to deal with it, but it's open. They will help you. They will bend over backwards to help you if there's trust. And that's an example I think we can all relate to.
Absolutely. What's coming up for me is clearly the CEO expertise you have, but I always, in our conversations, I always refer to it as the CEO persona in you. You have the CEO soul persona, the women's wisdom gleaned and gained is from your CEO soul persona, where right away you go to one of the key relationships in a business. And you can come up with that example right away in real time. And so let me ask you, how does this sort of play into the work that you do with your clients?
So I'm currently focusing on women who own their own law firms. And the work that I'm doing with them is helping them create sustainable, profitable businesses. These are very high-powered women. Typically, they've worked in corporate and they decided to go out on their own. They have a devoted clientele, and they're doing well. However, they may need some specific skills. They may need to develop certain understandings about what being a CEO is. So that's another development for them. That's another growth potential for them if they want it. And I feel very fortunate to work with women who do, and who are in the process of growing and learning new things and becoming really CEOs in addition to being phenomenal attorneys. It's very rewarding work.
That's so wonderful. And what came up for me as you were saying that is those exact women are often women who were subject to both of the things in the negative way that we were just talking about.
Yes.
They were in their younger attorney years, clerking or whatever, in the early days in the corporate, law firm that you mentioned. They were probably often treated, to uncivil discourse. And often there was a lack of trust, that they were not trusted by people they worked for or by colleagues, in a cutthroat environment. So I love that you're really focusing on women who are creating healthy work cultures in the law firms, doing the vital work that attorneys do today. So let me ask you, how can people find you? Because this conversation needs to be continued. I honestly cannot think of a more important conversation right now in business.
So people can go to my website, strategicreceivables.com. And also I can be emailed at melanie@strategicreceivables.com. And I'd love to talk to whoever would like to discuss these topics, or if you need help with your firm, I'd love to help you. We could talk about how that would work. Thanks so much,
Great.
Susan.
Just as a quick note, how does the strategic receivables, fit in? Where does that part come in with the nature of the work that you do with the accounts receivables?
Right. So initially we start with accounts receivable because from a cash flow point of view, and cash flow is a leading indicator of organizational stability, we want to start with the money owed to the firm. And the reason for this is work already done. And the money is owed. And we have to get that money. We have to get that cash in. And so that's a very strong leading place to start. I have some current clients that increased their receivables 130% within 1 month, their current receivables. So it really works. They are overjoyed. Really, this is the place to start.
That's fantastic. That is good news. Again, bottom line, what you just referred to, I call it in my work, I call it money bags on the shelf. They're literally money bags on the shelf sitting in front of you. All you need to do is pick them up. And sometimes it just takes a little work, but it's sitting there in front of you. So I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for taking the time to, to chat with me today. I'm looking forward to continuing this important conversation because I know that there's one thing we're both committed to, and that is supporting, uplifting, and inspiring women in business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for doing the series, and thank you so much for talking with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I will look forward to our next conversation.
Great. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.